Hi and welcome to this video about how to use the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is probably something you've heard of, something you may even have tried, but a lot of people get stuck on various points on it, and that's what this video is hoping to cover. In fact, it will cover. So what we're going to do is work around this mind map, and you'll get a copy of this mind map as well to download, print off, do whatever else you want with. I'll give you a PDF of it, and we'll also give you the mind map format if you want as well, so that you can add your own nodes in and things like that. It's done using a program called FreeMind. So mind mapping is a fantastic technique. It's good for the law of attraction because you can actually map out what needs to happen. So first thing to do is start small, and the reason for that is that, as with everything small, you get quicker results. In the same way as you wouldn't, when you're a toddler, you wouldn't start off by doing a marathon. You'd do one step at a time. Your parents would praise you. You'd think, yeah, that praise was good, let's do it again. And you'd move on. And exactly the same with the law of attraction. If you start small, what you'll find is that you will actually notice it. One of the ones I always use as a suggestion is look out for a pink car. And unless you happen to have the pink car rally driving past you, which I did weirdly one week, I was driving down the road and every car the other direction was pink. I was thinking, this is weird. But most of the time there aren't very many pink cars out, so you set your mind to attract that or whatever else it happens to be, just something relatively small, so you can prove that you've attracted that into your life. And that's what you're doing, because you're focusing on things and starting small, then move up. Take baby steps, doesn't matter, because this works really well. And starting small just teaches your mind that the law of attraction really works, because chances are your conscious mind is thinking, no, this is just new age whatever, and it isn't. It works. Whatever you've got in your life, you are attracting. You may not think it, you may think that's rubbish because I'm looking around me and it's not what I want, and I know it's not what I want, but at some level you're attracting it. So we're going to effectively do like you switch your computer off and then back on again. We're going to do a reboot on your mind. And that's what starting small does. It just is a quick reboot. You think, actually, yeah, that did work. And that's where we go. Right, next topic I'm going to talk about is phrasing your request correctly. And that is really important. It's probably the most important part of the law of attraction. It's probably the part where a lot of people don't get it right. And notice how I phrased that. I didn't say get it wrong, because what that's doing is telling your mind to get it wrong. What I said is don't get it right. And although I've said don't use negatives, the don't get it right, your mind crosses out the negative part of that. And that means your mind will actually process don't get it right as get it right. And that is why I'm saying don't use negatives. You can use negatives, you just have to be really careful how you use them. So the best way is just use positives. Especially when you're starting out, it's the easiest way of doing it. Just phrase your request with no negatives. And like I said, I know I've used negatives in that part, but just be really careful how you use that. And ideally just move it that way, and use the phrase at least to allow for more. So if you're looking for, if you want to attract, I don't know, let's say $1,000 into your life, and a lot of people would quite like that, use the words at least. So allow myself to attract at least that. I wouldn't actually suggest that you go for money targets specifically, because those are not the easiest things to go for, because money is actually pretty much a side effect of things. But the other thing, I need to add a tab on this thing, bear with me. Okay, a couple of tabs added, and the first of those is be careful with specifics. Now, when I say that, if you decide that you want to attract, let's say, a particular house, it may never come on the market. So it's different with a car, unless it's one of these unless it's really a unique collector's item. But something like a house, if you set your mind, or a partner, because it may not happen. So you need to allow your request to be specific enough to attract what you want, but not so specific that you basically reject everything else. So be very, very careful with specifics, and this is all to do with phrasing your request. So rather than I want to attract a particular person as my life partner, however you want to phrase that, spouse, wife, husband, whatever it happens to be, because as I said, that lots of reasons that may not happen. It may do, but you need to just be a little bit more generic and just say someone with those characteristics. I did it when I moved into my house here. I just set the target of a large old house near the town centre, and I gave all sorts of other, but I didn't give a specific address. And I looked at about 4 houses, and this was one that stood out and said, yes, that's the one you're going to buy. So you need to allow, and the reason for allowing going back to that one with the at least, the reason for that is that you could get better. I chose originally on the house a garage, but in fact I got parking for 4 cars out the front instead, and that actually was a better solution. And on the phrasing, I allow myself is a good way of phrasing. So I allow myself to attract a partner or whatever it happens to be, and allow myself to attract a brand new car. Now again, if you're going to go for the phrasing of a car, be quite specific. Make sure that it's real life size, not a model of. Things like that. So just be a little bit careful on how you phrase. But the phrase I allow myself, it's really, really good, because what that does, it pushes your conscious mind out of the way. Because what happens with the law of attraction, especially when you're starting out, is that people think, okay, and then your conscious mind kicks in and says, nah, yeah, that'll never happen. So allowing yourself, fantastic phrase, and it means that your conscious mind says, well, yeah, it might not happen, but okay, if it does, I'll be happy, and that's how it works. Right, moving across, lots and lots of detail, and not in the request, but just in how you think about it otherwise. The request can be relatively short. So I allow myself to attract a brand new car that's no more than 18 months old, has no more than 30,000 miles on the clock, is this colour, has air conditioning, has leather seats, seats at least 4 people, is economical to run, and so on and so on and so on. You may not include the make on that, you might do, or you might not, but things like that, and lots and lots of detail, and the more detail you can go into, the better. And one of the ways, especially once you move away from the smaller law of attraction targets, once you move into the larger ones, is actually do a large sheet of paper or a word processed document, whatever works for you, and really step into it as though you're watching it as a movie or whatever, where we all know that Harry Potter can't play Quidditch in real life, you can't fly around on a broomstick, but you're watching it on the movie screen and it's fine. And you need to go into that kind of detail where, even though it seems weird at the moment, seems odd, seems out of reach, the closer you can actually step into whatever it is you want to attract, the more likely you are to be able to attract it. So that's what I mean by imagine yourself in the event. And literally go into a long description about it. So what I've said is include the different modalities. Most of us are predominantly one of those 3 different modalities. Modalities are just the way we look at life. There now, using a modality there. That's a visual modality. We look at life. But a feel about life would be the kinesthetic one, because kinesthetic's feelings, and audio would be the way we hear things. So if you can use all 3 of those modalities, that's much more powerful than just using one of them. You'll probably find that if you're like most people, you've got 1, maybe 2 of those are strong and the other one's weak, or 2 of the weak. It varies from person to person. I think the figures are roughly half the world is predominantly visual and the other 2 split the rest. But what that means is when you're visualizing what you want, the more of those you can include, the more powerful it becomes. Again, think about it with a movie. it's not just pictures flashing up on the screen, there's sound along with it, and if it's a surround sound thing and whatever, you might even get rumbles with the subwoofers and things like that that are in the cinema that literally do tremble you slightly. And that's what they're trying to do. And that's what you need to be trying to do when you visualise, there we are, visual wording again, but when you create your vision, your whatever it is you want to create. As I said, I did it with a house, and you can do it with anything. You can do it with a car. If you're going to do it with a car, you'd bring in the kinesthetic side would be the smell of the fresh leather, the rush of the open air as it comes. If it was a convertible, the visual would be how the car looked, how you saw yourself as a reflection in it, in the windows, and the reflection on the shiny metal that's outside. And then the audio would be the roar of the engine. You might also bring in the safety aspect, because that's kind of used in car commercials as well, and therefore you need to keep your mind on board with that. If it's trying to attract a partner, then the visual side would be however they'd look, the audio would be how each of you would speak to you, and the kinesthetic I'm going to leave to your imagination. But you'd move all that kind of detail in. That's the kind of backup. So the request itself is relatively short. It's condensed. But the backup to the request, and again, that helps. It's not often covered in Law of Attraction. Quite often they just say, well, you put your request out to the universe, you let them wait for it to happen. But if you've got the backup of it, a one-page document, piece of paper pinned up on your wall actually is fantastic. That really, really helps. Not buried on your desk, not left in your word processor and it scrolls off the end of the list or anything like that. Literally, I know it's not environmentally friendly, but print it out. It's only a page. Stick it up somewhere where you're going to see it morning, noon and night. And then read it through out loud. And each time you do that, again, visualize yourself in that situation. And this is why money, I mentioned earlier, isn't particularly an easy one to do, because money we don't actually see very often nowadays. It's a figure on a bank account, and that's pretty much all it is. It's odd. Money, it's something. It's the social lubricant. It's how we get through society. It's the exchange of goods. But in and of itself, you probably don't have that many dollar bills or pound notes. Well, definitely not pound notes here in the UK, because we don't have them anymore. We have coins. But £10 notes, whatever happens to be, $100 bills, anything like that, you don't actually have very many, because what happens is it's a figure. You don't even swipe your card nowadays here in the supermarkets. You just, below a certain amount, you just hold the card near the machine, it goes ping, okay, it's taken. So money's weird. You could potentially visualise it, but it's much better to visualise material things. That's why, coming back to that one. And then the fourth prong of using the law of attraction is here. It's the being grateful. And it's something, the more grateful you are, the more the universe appreciates it. So, going back to the pink car we were looking at earlier, as soon as you do it, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the 3 times there works as well. So you'd, in your mind or out loud, if it's not too embarrassing to do it, just go, thank you, thank you, thank you, that's happened. And the gratitude breeds. It really does. And you'll be buzzing once you start doing that. Gratitude journal is a really easy thing to keep, just by your bedside, and last thing at night, write down at least 3 things that you're grateful for today. Initially, it could be something that you think, what am I grateful for today? Well, okay, you're still breathing, so yeah, thank you for life, thank you for the fresh air I'm breathing. It's one of them. Thank you for the food I've eaten. It was tasty, delicious, kept me healthy. And then whatever else it was, thank you for seeing that pink car, whatever it happens to be. And saying thank you is really, really good. Say it when you're in shops and getting service or on the phone. It's something we've fallen out of the habit of doing, and it's something that really, really works. The more grateful you are, the more grateful the universe will notice you being, and the more you'll for it to happen. So being grateful It's kind of the fourth prong. So we'll just recap here. Start small with your requests on the law of attraction because it's just easier that way. Keeps your conscious mind to realise that things have happened. Phrasing your request correctly, ignoring negatives as much as possible, using the words at least, including a timescale, and that can be a kind of at most timescale, so within the next year, within the next 3 weeks, whatever it happens to be. Be careful with specifics, be reasonably specific, but you can't go totally precise because it might never happen. That's foolish trying to attract something that just physically isn't possible. You couldn't own the United States, so that couldn't be one of your goals. Sorry. And then I allow myself, including that in the phrase, is good. And the backup side of it, the lots of detail, because that again gives you the complete visualization. If you can step into it in your mind and be there, see the things you'd see, hear the things you'd hear, feel the things you'd feel, the closer you can get to that, the better. And then day in, day out, be grateful. The more often you're grateful, the more often you say thank you, either out loud or in your head or a mixture of both, the better. So that's it. Print out the mind map, put it somewhere, put this into practice, and you'll find that law of attraction really does start, and it turns into a virtuous circle that actually starts attracting itself. Okay, thank you very much for watching.